Welcome to the State of Happiness. I'm your host, Leslie Juvin-Acker, Chief Happiness Officer at Leslie Inc., where we provide solutions for finding happiness for stressed, anxious, and overwhelmed senior-level managers, executives, and entrepreneurs. The State of Happiness podcast offers you conversation, inspiration, and ideas for helping you increase your happiness in the areas of your personal relationships, your career, your abundance, and your emotional well-being. So come along with us on this episode, and we'll help you get the tools, resources, and inspiration you need to help you find your own state of happiness. Are you looking to find new ways to engage and motivate your team? Want to create a culture of mindful leaders? Then get your company a Work Happy Mindful Leadership Retreat. Work Happy Mindful Leadership Retreats are always fun, always happy, and never boring. Give your team practical and useful tools in conflict management, emotional intelligence, and more. The Leslie Inc. team will help you create a custom training Work Happy experience. Learn more at leslieinc.org to work happy. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining me on this episode of The State of Happiness with me, Leslie Juvin-Acker. On this episode, we have our camp counselor of our Work Happy Retreats, Anna Gomez. She's based in New York City, and she's going to be telling us today how to plan an unforgettable corporate retreat from the beginning until the end. And she's been doing this for 10 years. She is an expert in her field of nonprofit arts management, events and programming, and group sales. So she knows everything about this. She's done this globally all over the world, and she's going to walk you through it so that way you and your team create an amazing cultural experience that not only is fun, but meets your goals. So welcome, Anna. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Hey! So let's talk about your experience first. Let's talk about, what you've been doing with events and programming, and you've been doing this for a long time. You've illustrated a little bit of your journey in our last podcast episode, but we want to know a little bit more specifically about events and programming, and why is it so important for a company to hire an expert in planning the events and the programming for their particular cultural goals?
I have been doing this for a long time. And to answer your question as to why you should hire an expert, I feel that a lot of times there are a lot of reasons to have events, and an expert provides a way to channel the goals so that you actually have an event that was executed with the intention, in a sense.
Right.
So whatever the reason is, whether it's to have fun, whether it's, just to provide an outing, whether it's to actually inform your team players about something new, whatever the reason is, you always kind of want to have someone that's from the outside that can kind of extrapolate the key issues and goals and points and put them together in a package that causes less stress for you, right? This person will be coordinating everything, making sure that all of your goals and your intentions are met during the event or at the end of the event.
Right. Well, let's look at corporate events. That's really what we're talking about. That's who we serve is in our community is corporate companies. And for us here at Leslie Inc., we specialize with, high tech, biotech, and outdoor lifestyle companies. So these companies are not just creating an event just to blow money. And we know that a lot of companies, they're, the average event's $30,000 more, so we know that no business is out to just blow money for no reason. It has to have a purpose. And of course, every company wants to make more money and have more impact and have more of a cultural statement. And a lot of these events serve that. So what's the first place that a company and a group should think of when they are going, okay, maybe our initiatives, our homegrown ones are not working so well. Maybe our culture is having some problem. Maybe our executive team is having an issue. What's the first place somebody should go to when they're thinking about creating an event to kind of, in a way, kind of push a restart button to their organization?
Yeah, so there are different kinds of events. So the first thing you want to ask yourself, planning this event, is what's your goal? So if your goal is to really do some kind of reset button and to kind of revitalize your team, and you really want to educate them on maybe some, emotional intelligence skills, or really just kind of, bring back that sense of community. I would say have an intention. Figure out what's the issue at hand, and what is the end result that you ideally want. Like, if everything was great and you could just press a button, where do you want it to be? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then do some research. Look at other organizations, talk to human resources, go online, find spiritual or motivational speakers that you like, that you enjoy, and see what they're communicating and see what they have to offer. You know, that's if that's the kind of event that you want to do. That's what I would talk to your fellow coworkers or other companies. You're not the first. You're not the first one that wants to do this. There are other people, other companies that have done similar things. So see what works for them. Hey, we had this guy come in and he was awesome. He really motivated everyone. Those kind of things. You really kind of want to just do your research in the sense of got to get a feel for what kind of event you're looking for, right? You have a goal and you want to see ideally what it is, and then you want to do some research as to what kind of event you want to do. Is this the kind of event where you just want like a workshop, where you just want people to just be listening to someone like a lecture, or do you want it to be more hands-on? Do you want it to be somewhere where they can are in team building activities, things of that nature?
Right. So it's looking at different methodologies for accomplishing those goals.
Yeah, because there's a lot of techniques and there's a lot of ways to go about.
Right, because they can just definitely hire a speaker or, just somebody to talk at them.
Yeah, and the other thing that I would ask, so you have your goal, you have your intention, you have that end result that you want. You have done some research as to the sense of, what kind of programming you're thinking of. And then lastly, think of the kind of, I guess, culture. What would fit? You know what I mean? We're talking to someone within the same generation work, or we're talking to someone, like you don't want to have, I don't know, like if your people are like these techies, you don't want to have some old lady talking to them. You know what I mean? Like the culture just doesn't work. They might not resonate. They might not relate to that kind. That person may be very knowledgeable, might have some great insight, but it might not connect. You know what I mean? So think about your audience. Think about the kind of environment that they would be up to, or what kind of speaker, or what kind of this also goes with your research, what kind of culture or feel they would have. Higher level execs may be more comfortable with just going on a more casual one-on-one conference style event, whereas younger people might want more hands-on workshop events, from someone that's a little bit more senior but not too senior, so that they can relate to this person.
Right. So it's kind of like creating a vibe, You know what I mean? Just kind of
Oh,
like creating
totally.
a
It's like
vibe.
a party.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a party.
What kind of party are you having? Are you having like this big blowout, or are you having like a small aperitif, conference, nice little jazz, or all of those kind of things? What kind of ambiance do you want, and what's the goal at the end? And what kind of
Right.
vibe?
But, I mean, for me, having worked a very long time with the action sports industry and outdoor lifestyle industry, and we're talking about snowboarders and skiers and surfers and their type of, retreat, and it's evolving now, but,
Yeah.
a decade or so ago, a lot of that was, snorting coke and, going to Hawaii and like getting in trouble. And now a lot of these people who were doing all of this, they're coming back and they're having kids and, they're having mortgages and life is changing. And so their priorities are changing, and therefore the culture of the company is changing because their priorities are changing. And so I've seen that evolve a lot in action sports, the lifestyle industry, and now they're going like, okay, well maybe there's more to just partying and being a bro and drinking beer and staying up until 2 o'clock in the morning. Maybe we want to bond another way where I can go home to my family. So we're looking at that culture of like, well, what are their personal needs? How do you fit that in? And how does it fit within the company's context? Because, companies are definitely evolving. And especially lifestyle action sports, they're not these small, tiny little companies
Yeah.
anymore. They're international companies, they're multicultural companies, they're multinational companies. And so we're looking at ways to bridge that gap. My question for you is that, and I want to go on what you were talking about finding somebody who is more appropriate in terms of a speaker or a facilitator. Let's go in that direction and be like, when somebody is planning an event, maybe they don't want to be talked out all day. Maybe they do want a workshop learning experience. How would you advise somebody to find the right balance between being talked at and just being quote unquote motivated, to being trained actual skills and problem solving and entertaining and communicating? How would you balance that?
Well, you got to break it up. I mean, just look at your everyday life. You spend a couple hours, you spend an hour reading emails, you take a coffee break, you chit chat with friends, go back to some work. I mean, it's the same thing with any conference. You got to break it up. You definitely need to have a strong introduction with some strong goals set so that everyone's on the same page. That's always very important. You need to make sure that everyone is well aware of what the itinerary is.
Right.
And then you want to definitely, break it up. Have some, if no one, I mean, so the first, 10 minutes, 15 minutes is a great, lecture too, you know. Um, then have some a coffee, some networking opportunities, people to talk and meet and get comfortable, and then have an ice breaking kind of activity if they don't know each other already. And with that said, you do want to make sure that people, and this goes with planning, and working with the event, depending on what kind of event it is, you do want to make sure that you do have those opportunities for people to intermingle. That is very important. And then, breaking out, into structured activities with flexibility and time. But at the same time, you just want to make sure that it's structured in a sense. I mean, I'm all about laid back and having a good time and having fun. But you're there for a reason. You know what I mean? You're not there just to shoot, shoot the shit, right?
Well, I mean, most,
If it is for that, if it is, then that's what the precedent should be at the beginning. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you guys, this is just to have fun. But I want everyone to make sure that they meet someone new today and that you get, some kind of thing at the end, just so
right.
that you set a precedent. There has to be an intention to the meeting.
Well, a lot of the best intentions though go missed. They really do. The intentions get lost. A lot of times the event will happen. I know I work with a lot of people from all over the world who've done all types of retreats, and they come back and they're saying like, oh my God, that was the most corniest thing ever. And I didn't learn anything, or maybe I learned this one thing, but it really didn't change my relationship with those people. And, so it's really like being mindful of not letting it go. I think, of course, picking somebody to speak and to facilitate is really important. But it's also not just about having somebody to motivate you. It's about having somebody to help you open up, and having a speaker so authentic and so emotionally connected to people that it's like, okay, it's safe to be honest. Because a lot of times when these retreats happen, and these are often between departments and product development, or different leadership teams, there obviously are some systemic issues in the team. And what happens is that they go to these events with a very, very important intention that, I'm going to fix this and we're going to definitely be a better team, but nobody opens up. What would you say? And I have my experience in helping people do that, but as somebody guiding a company, or somebody who's creating an event, what would you say to them to be mindful of in that case?
Well, definitely creating those opportunities for people to communicate, and establishing or informing everyone that this is like a safe space. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard. You know what I mean? Like, as someone who's putting on the event, you want to get people comfortable. You know what I mean? And that has a lot to do with the vibe. You want to make sure that, little things, lighting, sound, seats are comfortable, restrooms are nearby, like little things. People don't think about this, but little things, making sure the temperature is right, get people comfortable, environmental things just help facilitate that, And also when events happen outside of the office, it tends to be better, because then the person's like, oh, I'm away from work. Yeah, this is work related, but it's not at work. You know what I mean? That's also, I would recommend it. Or even if it's not, even if it is at work, making that space different from work. You know what I mean? Making it into a more comfortable setting. That's important. And also making sure that the person that you hired to speak is aware of those issues, so that they can prompt people to be open. Maybe not put people on the spot, but if the facilitator, the speaker, is aware of some of the issues that are underlying, that helps a lot. Sometimes you'll see that the speaker is focused on one thing, but everyone else in the room wants to talk about something else. You know what I mean? And the speaker may have some information, but they didn't prepare because they weren't aware, So they kind of lose out. So it's out of sync. So everyone was like, yeah, that was helpful, but I really wanted to talk about, the fact that that all these layoffs are coming on, or or that we're not meeting sales this quarter. Like,
or I hate the CEO. When are we going to get rid of this person?
Things like that. So if and that's why it's important, what I was talking about, what the goal is, what the issues are, knowing those things, maybe even taking a survey with the group, knowing what they want to talk about, and having the speaker aware of those things so that they can prompt the group to talk about this. You know what I mean? To address those issues, and doing those things in the room to make it a more comfortable setting. I've seen boardrooms turned into like nice little chic little look like living rooms. You know what I mean? Because it's just a better, different ambiance than just a round conference table where you have presentations.
Right. Well, there's the expression, that I use a lot when in helping people and relaxing. We say that a relaxed, a relaxed mind can exist in a tense body, and a tense mind cannot exist in a relaxed body. And it's really about first decompressing the physical comfort and then allowing the mind to follow suit. And creating those environments is just as important as hiring somebody to speak. Because in my head, when I think of a lot of public speakers that are being hired, I think of high school auditoriums where you're just being shuffled into this room, and it's like, here, like, learn something and don't screw up your life, and it's very just like general. And not to say that those speeches don't work, but obviously people feel very forced when they go into an environment that's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a way to disarm people first and foremost, is to make them feel comfortable, and then to begin to go, okay. And I think what you're saying about taking a survey is very important, and that's something that we aim to do, is to definitely understand what the end goal is, but also the systemic issues. And it doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to know what are the core causes of the systemic issues within a culture or in performance and bottom line, but it is a good start to look at what are the goals, what are the problems, and then a good facilitator will help you get to the point of understanding what really is the problem, as opposed to being like, well, what do you think the problem is that's causing all of this, and let me talk about that. Because in my work, after 10 years of coaching executives and people, excuse me, they come in and they're thinking, this is the reason why I'm upset. This is, and then I'm like, let's talk for a little bit. And after 30 minutes, I'm like, that's not at all. It's this. And they're like, oh my God. So getting out of tunnel vision is an important part of facilitating. Unfortunately, many times a very tough conversation, but to take a tough conversation where people are like pointing fingers at the CEO going, you suck, and you keep firing everybody, to make it a more graceful conversation of going like, okay, how do we fix this?
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us at the State of Happiness podcast. Now, you can get happiness tips and news directly into your inbox each week with the State of Happiness newsletter. Receive special offers and invitations to exclusive online events. Go to leslieinc.org and sign up right now for the State of Happiness newsletter.
Definitely.
So we've established already taking a survey, knowing what are the systemic issues are.
Yeah.
And if what are the blocks? Looking at what are the goals? Where would we like to go? Establishing a vision and a theme to what we want to correct. Getting people comfortable. Being okay with having a tough conversation. And structuring the event and breaking it up. How about creating a sense of entertainment? Do you think that just a talk is enough? Do you think it's important to also add entertainment or food and dining, drinks?
Yeah, and those all kind of tie in with the comfort, entertainment, food, beverages, alcohol. That all comes almost as an extension of getting people comfortable and willing to have those hard conversations, right? And being personable with each other, So I'm all for having fun too, you know what I mean? If you can incorporate some other entertainment in addition to, go for it. If that's the vibe of the people that you are facilitating this event for, then go for it. And the entertainment doesn't have to be open bar. I mean, I've had events where it's a whole bunch of older women that enjoy, tea and cakes, and they think that is the best thing ever with some mimosas. You know what I mean? And that got them chatting it up. You know what I mean? So it really just depends on, creating those moments, and that kind of ties in comfort and having the breakout sessions where people can just feel comfortable. Just, you want people to get personal. You want people to realize that these are teammates. Work is so much a part of our life. We spend so many hours at a job or at a career, that it's like an extension of your family, your work family. It's a joke, but it really is. And you have to, as someone putting on the event for your company, you have to um, make those opportunities for people to get personal. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And that's a big part of this event, and that helps. You know, serving some wine and having a singer, or going to karaoke after, or anything really that is works for your group, then totally.
Right.
It gets people comfortable, it gets the juices flowing, it gets them, set and to address the issues, and that's usually kind of in these soft times is when you get, this sense of, oh yeah, you think the same thing, I do too, like, oh my God, like I've been struggling also, like I can't believe it, and oh yeah, I heard from so and so that, so that's happened, or the CEO did that, I can't believe it, it's these moments of relationship, and that's a big thing.
Right. Well, I think that's so true because I have a number of stories just from that alone at different trade shows that I've been to with breakouts, to different corporate events that I've also attended for different clients, and different CEOs or different company people will come up to me during these happy hours, which is a part of what we do in our programming as well for the work happy retreats. We definitely provide a work happy hour space where people can just relax and talk, because for me and my experience is that I've gotten people come to me and be literally in my face and giving me heart to hearts and telling me things that they want me to know, or the things that they feel about. And I remember this one time I was at an event at a Christmas party, and one of the girls got so smashed. I mean, really smashed. And she was like, with her drink on the table and hiccuping. And, one of the owners of the company was standing there, and she was like, when are you going to get rid of the CEO? We hate him, and she's just looking at him and telling him, why do you have this guy? He's so awful. She's like, I do the accounting and we're not making any money. And he's like, I know. And needless to say, just months after, that CEO got fired. So it's like these moments, and I'm sitting there, I'm watching these things, and I don't know if it's my face or what, but people instantly break down and tell me the truth. And I think once those barriers are broken down, and if it's just, not me, but in another setting, once those walls come down, truth comes out. And I think it's so important that people provide those free, kind of like at the recess times, at school, free times to play.
Yeah, free time to play.
Play, sing karaoke, whatever, to have some beverages and to relax, because it's true that those moments come out, and I've seen them time and time and year after year, that just providing that opportunity to be honest in a format where you're not going to be penalized, where it's not like, oh, you're speaking out of turn or whatever. I definitely think that that's so important. So when we look at this, you have worked with the Miami International Film Festival, with the Women's International Film Festival. You've worked, you work here with the New York Botanical Gardens. You really have worked in such a broad space with people from all over the world and all different cultures. How do you create an environment that really welcomes people from all walks of life?
Well, if you have international people, you definitely have to have like what I call like aperitivo type moments for sure. Like especially with the Europeans, they just love that. That's just
And
that's just
what is aperitivo for those people
for everyone.
who don't speak Italian?
It's like an aperitif, so it's a before dinner break fun time with usually alcohol or beer and some light snacks. So a happy hour, the equivalent of happy hour here in the US, you know what I mean? You definitely have to have that. That's just a tip for anyone doing anything with Europeans. You definitely want to include that. But really, when you're dealing with international people or domestic or people from all walks of life, um, you want to take into consideration all types of religious, dietary, customs, things of that nature. I mean, it might sound silly, but for devout Muslims, praying is important for them. So having a space for them, if you're doing like a full all day thing, or even if it's an overnight thing, having a space where they can have their own time to pray. If you're gonna have, you know, people that are Jewish, providing kosher options,
Mm.
providing little things like that go a long way. Providing vegetarian options for people of all kinds. Providing, if you're going to have an international group and you're going to do some kind of breakout session, and people um, don't all speak English, providing translators, that goes a long way. I mean, it just adds to people saying, "Oh wow, they thought of me." You know what I mean? Many times we have groups, and I'm like, "Well, why didn't you tell me they spoke Spanish, or why didn't you tell me they spoke French? I could have gotten a translator for you so quickly. Like, it wouldn't have been extra. Like, you know what I mean? Because you want to make sure that these people feel comfortable. You know what I mean? It's a lot of work to think in another language and then comprehend that. I mean, from my personal experience living abroad, it was a lot of work. Things like that for sure. So you do want to take those things into consideration. And then you want to provide opportunities. Definitely, if no one knows each other, you definitely want to maybe, depending on how large the group is. So I've had large groups where it's a company sponsoring international people from the larger conglomerate. And so they had like key people from the local company that were kind of like facilitators, right? So
Mm.
they were assigned people, and they were assigned to introduce people to other people. They didn't know them, but they're like, hey, Jose, I want you to meet Maria. Maria does the same thing you do, but in Argentina. Jose, meet Maria. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
if it is a large group, those kind of things might help too. You know, you just want to take into consideration those kind of things. You want to add those people. You want to just make those introductions for them, kind of thing, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, we're looking at, I mean, with your work, it becomes so detailed.
Yeah, it really does. And it really depends on the scale of the group. You know what I mean? That was a very international group. That was a large conglomerate bringing people from all over Latin America and North America and Europe. And so there was a lot of details that we had to think about on an international scope.
But
With
how does somebody take it from, because when people are planning these international things, and most of my clients' companies are international companies, they are global companies, and we look at this and we're going, okay, this can be very overwhelming, and they might have already an events coordinator inside their company that is used to doing these things, or
Yep.
maybe they just might have a human resources person who's doing it, or they might have a marketing person that's doing it. From your perspective, and from where you are with your work, how would you say, what would be the top 4 or 5 things that people should remember when planning an unforgettable and a wonderful corporate retreat that's totally just emotionally on point, meets the goals? What advice, top 4 or 5, would you say, just remember these key tenets?
Number one, have a plan of action and be flexible with that plan of action. So yes, have your itinerary set, right?
Hmm.
But be flexible with it. Always be flexible with it. Things will happen. Things might not exactly start at 8 o'clock. It's okay. Lunch might not exactly be at 12:30. It's okay. But you have your structure, right? One.
Okay,
So
so
have that. It's important to plan and have a goal, have a structure, know what you're doing, right? And inform people of that. especially at the beginning when they're coming in, let them know what to expect. It's very important because a lot of less confusion if they know. I'm not talking about hand holding, don't have to do that, but let them know, hey, we're doing this first, then we're going to take a break, then we're going to have lunch, then we're going to go this, and then we're going to do that. You know what I mean? Let them know what's happening. So have a plan, be flexible with that plan. Second, know the audience. Who are these people? Know what they're into. Do that survey, know what their expectations are, know their dietary needs if there are any, know if they have any special um, disability needs, any other extra needs, special need, anything else that might be pertain to that audience, let them know. Find out about it. Know your audience, right? That's very important. Two, make sure you, I guess, make sure that you have a good team. And it's hard sometimes because you may be thrown into a situation where, like, plan this for us, but try to establish a relationship with your coworkers or the person that's facilitating or the speaker, that you've at least had one or two conversations before the event happening. You know what I mean? Have that team there so that they know you, they know what they're expecting. You can rely on them on the day of. It's not just like a blanket where you're just like meeting someone for the first time. At least have a phone conversation. Whoever the lighting team is, if it's that elaborate, whoever is the supply team that's dropping up, the catering company, know you have a team and know your team and have those contacts. I know it sounds silly, but have your list with all their phone numbers. Sounds silly, but do have that. So have a team. Let's see. I think another important thing is remember, yeah, you're putting on the event, but you're also part of the event. I think this is important because people don't always, they're like, oh, I guess, especially with group leaders or people that are putting on the event, they forget that they're also here to have fun and enjoy it. You know what I mean? Yeah, you have to make sure that things are happening. Yeah, you have to put these things in the back burner or make sure that, you know, everyone goes or X, Y, and Z is happening behind the scenes. But you want to have fun too. And don't forget that. You know what I mean? Because people are coming to you for information, but you want to be approachable. You're part of that set environment that's going on right now. So you shouldn't be snippy. If people are asking you the same question over and over again, let them. You know what I mean? Like, you're part of the team. Like, you're there too. Some person that's do this, do that, do this, do that. Like, that's something I feel like a lot of people forget, is that they disattach themselves from the environment, right? Like, they're like, oh, that they're supposed to do that and I don't have to do that. You know what I mean? Like, no, you are in it too. You know what I mean? You're, even as you might have a different role than everyone else, but you are there as well. And that's important to understand and think about, right? And lastly, I don't know, be prepared for the unexpected.
Totally.
That's always with events. Any events, always be prepared. But if you have that plan of action, you're flexible with that plan, and you have your team, and you know your audience, you're gonna have fun. And you know that you are part of this, what you're creating, you're gonna have fun. And I think that those would be my takeaways.
That's such good advice, because we look at an event planning and especially for programming, especially when you do have a goal and you're there to get your team motivated so they can achieve performance goals, or to really reaffirm your corporate culture and to create a greater sense of community and teamwork from a local to a global environment. It's really important that we look at these types of opportunities, which retreats are. They're just opportunities for people to become closer, to have more meaningful relationships. And from those meaningful relationships and those authentic relationships, then work can get done, because you don't want to work with somebody that you don't trust, right? So it's really, really important that we create those opportunities for success.
Definitely.
I have to take a break 1 second.
Okay. I'm giving you gold, Lizzie. I'm giving you gold.
It is gold. So Anna, you have given us a top advice on how to make sure that these corporate retreats are golden, that they have purpose, that they're structured, that they have goals, that there are, opportunities to connect emotionally and mentally with people, and just to have fun, first and foremost. And it's kind of funny, because when you talk about that with Josh, who is our resident Nurse Cock, as you know, and we're developing our app, and you know how techies are, they can get very stressed out because they're doing 500,000 things at the same time. And he was telling me, I'm getting super stressed, I got all this stuff, and I'm going like, Josh, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. I mean, it really was that. And I swear to you, Anna, as soon as I said that to him, he was like, oh my God, I'm not having fun. I'm not doing it right. And he was just like, and then at that point I was like, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right, go take care of yourself, relax, come back to it. It'll be a fun. And as soon as he realized that this project, our projects, our work together is supposed to be fun, and the whole process is supposed to be fun, not the result of maybe meeting your financial goals or doing the things you want to do. If you're not having fun in that entire process, you're doing it wrong. So with that, I say, if you're not having fun with your corporate retreat, if it's not a fun process, and if planning is not a fun process, you're probably not going to have fun in the end. So make sure every single step of the way is a fun process. And I like to think that our team makes sure that that is something that we do.
Yeah, sure.
So,
totally.
We learned a lot today from Anna, and I have to say, you gave us a lot to think about, and I want to say thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
And I think we'll have you back for sure. We're going to talk about some other stuff, and tell more about our story as friends, but then we'll also be talking more about what we're doing together here at Leslie Inc. And I'm just so glad that we got to talk today and just share with everyone and how to have fun.
Love it.
All right, Anna, thanks so much for joining us.
Love it.
Yeah, right on. Thank you so much for joining us, and I will have you back soon.
Thank you for having me.
A many thanks to you, happy campers, for joining us today on this episode of The State of Happiness. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can join me at Twitter at Leslie Juvin, as well as follow at Leslie Inc. on Instagram, and talk with us at Facebook at Official Leslie Inc. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to leave us a rating and subscribe and share with a friend. As always, thanks for joining us, and remember, a smile goes a long way. Are you looking to find new ways to engage and motivate your team? Want to create a culture of mindful leaders? Then get your company a Work Happy Mindful Leadership Retreat. Work Happy Mindful Leadership Retreats are always fun, always happy, and never boring. Give your team practical and useful tools in conflict management, emotional intelligence, and more. The Leslie Inc. team will help you create a custom training Work Happy experience. Learn more at leslieinc.org to work happy.